Hi, and welcome to the Jordan Kinda Knows Something show, where I'll be talking about health, fitness, life, and anything else I kinda know something about. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to season 2. I am super excited for this new season, and I'm super excited for this episode, actually. This is an episode that I have wanted to do for so long. I've just never really found the right person to chat with about it. So, this episode today is going to be all about body image, mental health, bullying, a little bit of it all. So, again, I've always been afraid to do an episode like this. I've never really had, I guess, the strength to open up about any of this stuff. But I am today talking with Laura, one of the two hosts from the Sisterhood podcast. Their podcast, they open up about mental health and a whole bunch of amazing things in their podcasts. And Laura will talk to you a little bit more about these things a little bit later. So again, thank you for tuning in to season 2, and let's get into today's episode. Alrighty. Hello, Laura. Thank you
Hello.
for joining me and being on the podcast today. I'm super excited to chat with you.
Thank you for having me. This is my first time ever being the guest on a podcast.
Yeah, awesome. So, Laura here is one of the two hosts to a podcast that she has herself. So, if you wouldn't mind maybe introducing yourself and maybe a little bit about your podcast as well.
Yeah, of course. So I am one half of a podcast called Sisterhood, which I have with my older sister, Michelle. And we set this podcast up at the start of this year. So our aim was kind of to talk about anything and everything. We talk about mental health is our main thing that we try and cover, but we also talk about, sexuality. We did end up having a lot to talk about with coronavirus. So we did have a little mini series on that. But at the minute, my main focus on the podcast is talking about mental health. So I have a new little series on it called Coping, where I talk to people about different things they, are coping with and how they manage to get better during certain times. We've talked about depression, talked about breakups, and we've talked about getting hate online, PTSD. There's different things, and I just think our aim with the whole podcast is to have really open conversations. We don't want anyone to have to filter themselves at all, and just to make mental health part of a normal conversation.
Yeah. And I definitely I can testimony for all of that. Like their podcast is super open, super honest. I think the first episode that I listened to of your podcast was the body image episode. Which I really loved, and I really loved how open, both you and Michelle were about your stories of body image and kind of just the dynamic. Your sisters, so it's probably easier to
Yeah.
talk to one another about all of that. But yeah, definitely check out their podcast, everyone. I know, like you said, you have episodes on fear and social media and all of that. So they kind of dive into a lot of different topics, and it's super, super open and interesting there.
Yeah.
Um, what kind of was the reason for starting this podcast? Because I know mental health is kind of a huge topic, and it's something becoming bigger and bigger now, and people are becoming more open about it. So why did you guys kind of want to start this kind of journey about discussing mental health?
So the two of us are both in college at the minute. We're in our final year now, and we're both studying. My sister is studying psychotherapy and counselling and addiction, and I'm studying community and youth development. So looking at young people's mental health, addiction, and things like that. So we do that in college. So we wanted to kind of do something outside of college, and we listened to a lot of podcasts, but we still found that there was something kind of missing. Even though there are a lot of mental health podcasts, I do feel like sometimes they can not be filtered, but maybe not be as open as they could be, because I know people are given a limited amount of time. Whereas for the two of us to sit there and talk, we have all the time in the world because we lived together at the time. So it was really easy to just sit and talk about these things. But I wanted to do it for a really long time, and it took a long time to get Michelle on board with me to do it. So when she did say she'd do it, I was like, this is amazing. We can finally start recording our own podcast. And I think I have tried different things throughout the years. You know, I had a mental health blog years ago. I tried YouTube. That just wasn't for me. And I think podcast is like the perfect balance. You know, you don't have to be on video, but you can sit and talk. It's not the same as, you know, writing. Because you know, sometimes when you're writing, things can be taken out of context or, you know, might seem in a different tone. So I think like podcast was my main thing that I really, really wanted to do. So I'm so glad that we did actually do it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I definitely get that. Like podcasting is so much easier. And I know I do YouTube too sometimes, but like I interviewed my cousin the other day and I was just in my pajamas and like didn't really care is where when you're on like camera and stuff, it's a whole different story. So yeah, but I thought today it would be kind of interesting to talk about body image a little bit more, of course, mental health, which is kind of the reason why I wanted you on the podcast, because I know you two are, again, super open about everything and have some very interesting stories. And I know your body image episode, for example, you were kind of discussing your personal stories with body image, and then kind of how I liked how you brought in kind of men into the discussion and how it's kind of a growing topic for men as well. And I know I've definitely had my struggles with body image. I still do sometimes. So it's going to be, I think, a definitely a interesting conversation to have and kind of explore the two here. So if you don't mind, maybe kind of going into a little bit of the story and kind of why maybe what led you to creating that body image episode.
Yeah, so Michelle wanted to talk about that topic for a really long time, but I always felt it was very hard to talk about because I hadn't really experienced much issues with my body image. Well, I had, but I hadn't really noticed a pattern or anything like that until this year. So when everything happened with the pandemic, I was at home a lot and I was eating a lot, and I actually put on a lot of weight this year. So it ended up that I started getting really self-conscious. I couldn't fit into the clothes that I was fitting into before. I'd gone up sizes in clothes, which for me felt like the end of the world at that time. And that then resulted in me not really leaving the house. I was wearing big baggy hoodies to cover myself. I was wearing, you know, a lot of my clothes didn't fit. So the ones that would be big clothes that I just had for comfort, whereas they wouldn't be clothes that I would generally leave the house in. So I ended up, you know, really, really like isolating myself from the world. You know, we were allowed to go on walks and whatever by yourself, but I wasn't even doing that. So I was just sitting at home and I was feeling really down, and just it was really affecting my mental health because the things that I would normally do to look after myself, I had stopped doing because of my body image. I was so paranoid, even, you know, Zoom calls like this, you know, during that time, all my family, we were all separated around the country. So we were all talking on Zoom calls. And even having to go on video, I started getting really self conscious of the way that I looked. I didn't want to be in them anymore because I was looking at just myself. And yeah, I just wouldn't, I'd be on social media all the time and comparing myself to different people of how they looked and how, you know, during that time a lot of people were like going into fitness really hard and working out a lot at home, and I was looking at that going, why am I not doing that? And even though I wanted to do things like that, I couldn't, like, because I was kind of in a sort of depression, I couldn't actually get the energy to get up and do that. You know, there was something mentally wrong with me at the same time. They were both kind of linked together. But yeah, it was definitely the first time that I really experienced that. So then when I was experiencing that, I started talking to a counselor, because it was really affecting me. Like, as I said, I wouldn't leave the house. I didn't want to meet up with anyone. I didn't want to talk to anyone on Zoom or whatever it was. So she was talking to me about that, and she kind of told me, you know, maybe start going for like 5 minute walk or a 10 minute walk. Like, don't push yourself too hard at the start or you'll probably just give up, which is what I would normally do. So I started taking my dog on like a 5 minute walk and then a 10 minute walk or whatever it was, and built myself up again. So then when I started to feel a little bit comfortable to talk about body image, me and my sister were like, right, we'll record this episode now because I have been through it. But yeah, it's definitely been it's really hard when you are struggling with your body image. It affects all areas of your life that you wouldn't even think. It affects how I dress, it affects what I do. I'm still, not fully out the other end of it yet. I have stretch marks for the first time in my life going down my legs and stuff that I've never had before. And even last night I was putting bio oil on them, trying to reduce the redness and looking up how to get rid of stretch marks and whatever it is, even though I know that these are not healthy behaviors to be looking up things like that. And I know that our bodies stretch and that's normal, and we fluctuate in our weight and that's completely normal. But some days it is very hard to tell yourself that, and to be okay with the fact that you've gained weight or you've lost weight, whatever it may be. But for me, that was, I was at the heaviest I ever was. So it was difficult to kind of accept this new body. And as much as, you see online a lot of people talking about body positivity, it is kind of hard when it's yourself to put yourself into that position of loving your body no matter what. But I would say that, with body image, if you are struggling with the whole social media thing, to follow people that look like you or don't look like you, people who are similar sizes or bigger sizes or small sizes, just don't follow that one body, that there is that particular body that everyone kind of wants to get, the curves, the hips and the boobs and the big ass. But there are so many different types of body shapes that we should all be looking at and realizing that no matter what body shape you have, it is normal. But yeah, we were talking about men's body image that time, because I think it was something in the past, it didn't seem like men had struggled with body image, but I
Right.
see
Yeah.
now it's massive. And I think it is to do with social media as well. It is. I don't know if Love Island is as big over in Australia as it is here,
Oh, I
but
love it. Yeah.
you see all the men on that and they're
Yeah.
so muscly, and they're so they're all very similar to each other, and they're the kind of men that you see on Instagram all the time. You don't see different body shapes. You're always seeing that muscular promoting skinny teas or promoting whatever they're promoting, and there is
Yeah.
that kind of need for men to look this way now, which I don't know if there was that in the past, but to me it wasn't as in my face as it is now. I'm noticing a lot more that there is a lot of pressure on men now as well as women.
Right. Yeah. And you can definitely I think now with social media, it being so much bigger, and being exposed to it a lot more, it definitely, I think, seems a lot more prevalent now for males. And I think in the past, I mean, I remember, I remember going into grocery stores and walking down the aisle of the magazines and whatnot, and all of the men's magazines were all again, the big muscular men, and this kind of one type of the ideal male. Whereas now it's something that it's just exposed to 24/7. And I know me, I personally, yes, I've always struggled with body image from a young age, due to self-esteem, due to past bullying and all of that kind of stuff there. But I think it's something that now definitely lingers, especially with social media, and especially me being so into fitness and kind of not, I guess, being at the same level as maybe some of the people that I'm following and whatnot. And one thing that I liked that you guys mentioned in your episode of how you unfollowed a bunch of people that kind of made you negatively look at kind of how you saw yourself. And that's exactly what I've done. And I've kind of just unfollowed everybody. And it's definitely opened up my mind, and it's kind of definitely made things better, because you're not scrolling through every day, looking at all of these pictures of people that are probably on steroids and all of this stuff. And you're like, okay, that's unrealistic. I don't want to have to put myself through that to achieve all of that. So it's definitely something that, yeah, I think social media has a huge role in all of that.
Yeah.
So
And you
yeah.
don't know, with the people that you follow, you don't know what photo has been altered. Have they
Hmm.
used Facetune? Are they, photoshopping whatever they may be doing to that photo? You don't know what part of that is real, and you could be comparing yourself to a person who doesn't even look like what you think they look like. We can all alter our photo with filters or whatever it may be, but some people do go more in depth, and they do Facetune, or I don't know the actual terms, but
Yeah,
they
no.
can do all of that.
Hmm.
There is ways. You see it a lot with celebrities in. You would have seen it years ago in magazines where they would be
Yeah.
photoshopped and stuff, but now that's more common on social media. Whereas you kind of would think that social media is the real part of celebrities, whereas now it's not so much.
No.
Now you're getting them filtered images that would have been in magazines. They're on your Instagram feed now. They're completely filtered. It's very rare that you'll find a celebrity that isn't filtered in some way or another. So I do think even unfollowing celebrities is a good way of doing it, unless you do find them to be positive to follow. I'm not saying all celebrities. Obviously, I do follow a lot. I like following people like Demi Lovato and stuff who are
Hmm.
very real on social media and who post things like their cellulite or their stretch marks or whatever it may be, whatever you can relate to. But I definitely unfollowed a lot of people, or even if it is someone that in your personal life that you find yourself comparing to, the mute button is brilliant on
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah. For
You can just
sure.
mute. They'll never know,
No.
and you just don't have to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is like again, it's everywhere and even like not celebrities, but people on YouTube and all of these people. I know for male, I'm sure there's a lot of males out there and even females that may follow other females, may follow fitness influencers and all of these people that may be sponsored by companies and all of these
Sorry.
things and all of that stuff like it's kind of a mask in a sense, like you don't know what's going on behind the scenes and they've done all of this production, they probably have people doing makeup, even YouTube now, like there's probably people that are doing their makeup and doing all this stuff. So yeah, I really like that point of how you don't even know anymore, like you'd think, oh, YouTube, it's the real deal, like it's just people being them, people being open, but you're seeing like 20 minutes of their entire day, right? You're not
Yeah.
seeing like everything, you're just seeing what they edited it into. And I totally do that too sometimes. Like you can't make a 24-hour day video. I mean, I guess you could, but nobody would probably watch
God,
it. But um yeah, so you just edit in the good parts or the parts that you think people want to see, and it's all kind of about the likes and the views now.
Yeah, like no one's going to post their bad parts because no one wants to see that. As much as we all talk about wanting to see real things, you do see when people are very real or very vulnerable, that opens them up to a lot of hate online and stuff. So they are kind of protecting themselves in a way. If you do have a large following, you know that you can get a lot of hate or whatever it may be. There are YouTubers that I follow, and anytime they do talk about things like body image or stuff, they get a lot of comments being like, sure, what do you have to complain about?
Mhm.
You're skinny or you're slim, whatever it may be. I think people forget that even if you are slim, you can still have, body dysmorphia, or you can still have issues with your body. Doesn't mean, and you can also be like, overweight and be very body confident and very happy in your body. It's not what it seems all the time. Some people might look at maybe me and think, sure, what would she have to worry about? She's a normal size or whatever it may be. It's different for everyone. We all look at ourselves in a different way, and we all have different goals, and we want to look whatever way we find ourselves attractive, which might be different to other people. So I do see that with celebrities a lot. They have to be very careful with what they share because they can get a lot of, like, I think you have to be very, strong and like, you know, sure of yourself to be able to be so open online and to be able to accept that kind of criticism from strangers. So I think that could be a reason, that people aren't always as real as they probably even want to be. But there definitely are people out there that will be as honest and real and don't care about, what people say, especially on Instagram. There is a lot of people you can follow that will bring a little bit of positivity to your feed.
Yeah, yeah. And I definitely see that. And I'm definitely guilty of that too. Like I try to be open. I try to be honest as much as I can all the time, but I still catch myself. I think it's from again, the previous experiences of having this poor self-esteem and all of that, and still every now and then catching myself making that edit, or having waking up with a pimple and like, oh well, I can't post this picture today, or editing the pimple out, or just small things like that, that you're like, okay, why am I still doing this when you're trying to be open? Or why am I still doing this when like the effects that it has on you, like you've I personally tried to work on mental health like the last couple years as much as I can, but every now and then you still kind of fall into those old habits. You still try to put on that good side of the day, essentially. um but what kind of things have you kind of found helped, I guess, body image, or helps you kind of become as open as you are?
I think for me, I didn't want to be open until I had kind of talked to myself almost to
Right.
see what was actually going on and why was I feeling this way. And I think what helped for me was just taking the pressure off myself and allowing myself, like talking to myself and basically saying, we are going through a pandemic. You have been sitting down the majority of the days when you're used to going to college, walking around, moving all the time. Like, this is normal. I used to go to the gym a lot. So when the pandemic, happened, obviously I couldn't go to the gym anymore. So it was almost natural that this was going to happen. But at the time I was really beating myself up. So when I kind of talked to myself and I said, okay, look, this is just normal. This happens. Don't beat yourself up about it. It kind of gave me that space to be able to talk about it with other people. So I did start to talk about it with other people, which I do think can help, because a lot of the time you think you're the only person going through these things, but especially with something like body image, majority of people are struggling in some way with, their body image. But now at the minute, it is even for my mental health, it's so important for me to work out. So I am back at the gym. I have started with a personal trainer. I'm trying to eat a little bit healthier, and that's not even for physically, that's more for mentally, because when I eat crap, I feel crap. When I don't work out, I feel really down and I feel just not good in myself. And I feel like even if I'm having a bad day, if I go to the gym for even a half an hour, that makes me feel so much better. And I know for everyone, the gym isn't always, their go-to, but even just going for a walk and moving your body and getting out a little bit helps a lot. I'm trying not to focus on the weight part. I'm trying to focus on, my mental health. And I think that it's definitely helping, because if I'm on a weighing scales all the time and I'm looking at the numbers and nothing's happening and I'm doing everything, that's just going to bring me back to the start and I'll give up and things like that. But because I'm focusing more on my, mental health, like even I'm thinking of starting running tomorrow, because I'm like, I think that'd be nice in the morning to wake up
Yeah.
and energize me, rather than thinking, okay, if I go for a run, I might lose a couple of pounds, that kind of way. So
Yeah.
that's my mentality around it, is how can I, make myself feel better mentally rather than looking at the weight. But yet the weight will come along with it. You will start to lose weight from that. And you will start to, whatever it may be, if you want to build muscle or build strength, that can happen along the way. But I just find that if that was my main goal, that just wouldn't work for me. I need to work on myself mentally before I can get to the point where I am, working on my physicality. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that podcast even helped a lot, recording that with my sister, because although we are sisters and you would think that we know these things about each other all the time, every time we sit down and record a podcast, we learn something new about each other,
Mhm.
because it's not every day you sit and have these conversations. That's the good thing about having a podcast, is you are forced to have these kind of conversations, whether it's with people or with strangers, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And you're talking about your biggest vulnerabilities, and that's what really helped with as well, was uploading that podcast and getting people's feedback. I think that's one of our most listened to podcasts, because it is something that everyone can relate to in some way. So I think, yeah, having people, respond to us in the way that they did and saying that they were struggling too, it made me feel really glad that we did talk about that. And, we would love to talk about, men's body image as well. So you're more than welcome to come on and
Yeah.
talk to us about
Oh,
that.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I definitely like that totally resonates with me too, because I think the more open you are and the more you speak to it and about it, the more I think mentally or the mental side of things become a little bit better. I know for myself, I know I started a blog too, and I actually made a like body dysmorphia post, I think last year. And it was like a post that, again, it was like the most views or whatnot. And I think just because me sitting down, being open, talking about being bullied, talking about how that kind of affected me from a young age throughout high school, and then kind of that all kind of um, leading to like poor self-esteem and just adding to that poor body image. I think that really helped me mentally, because now, I mean, within like the last year, my whole mentality of going to the gym, for example, has changed definitely as well. Originally I started going to the gym so that I could look a certain way, so that I could fill this kind of stereotype, so that I could put on muscle, so that I could hopefully become a little bit more confident. Whereas now it's like, I think that thing, you can only achieve it if you're healthy mentally, like I was probably 2 years ago in the best shape of my entire life, but I was no happier than I was before. So I think, I mean, now I'm a lot happier because now I go to the gym because of the way it makes me feel, and because I like going to the gym. I like having that hour to just kind of relax. It's kind of I guess, my meditation for the day, that I don't have to do school and all of that stuff. But yeah, it's like definitely within this last year, with me just writing that post, or with me becoming a little bit more open, and during my Instagram posts every now and then, I try to, if I'm having a bad day, I try to tell people that I'm having a bad day and this is what I'm experiencing. And just kind of those little things, I think, really, really helps. And yeah, I think that's the hardest thing for anybody, is trying to be open. And sometimes I think, if people don't have someone that they can confide in, that they can't talk to, someone they don't have a podcast to talk with, or something like that, then just doing something as simple as like writing a blog post or writing on your social media. Because I think there's also a fear aspect too, right? You don't want to
Yeah.
be made fun of. I know when I first wrote that post, or that blog post that I did a year ago, I wrote it, and I don't think I pressed post until like maybe 2 or 3 months later, because I was so afraid that people would see it and people would judge me, or people would make fun of me. And all of these like past kind of feelings of how I grew up, and all of like the whole bullying that I experienced kind of came back into play. And I was like, do you know what? Like, first of all, a year ago, like, I think I graduated high school like 7 or 8 years ago now. So it's like, okay, all of those people, I don't even think I have anybody on Facebook anymore. Like, I don't really care in a sense. And plus, like, I'm not going to see them. So who cares what people think if they end up reading the blog? You know what I mean? So yeah, I
Yeah, I
definitely like
find
that.
Yeah, I find that as well. Definitely. You do always revert back to your school years at some point. There's always something there that stuck with you, even though it can be like it's been probably around the same 8 years for me now.
Yeah.
So even though, that was so long ago, something that someone said in that time can stick with you throughout your life. And it can be even when you're posting a podcast or a blog post, something kind of comes back to you and you think, oh God, what if they make fun of me or something, even though they're so in your past and you never think of them on a day-to-day basis. But when it comes to something like that, it is very scary, and you're thinking, you kind of go back to that school mentality and whatever it may be. But yeah, I definitely, went through that with my blog. Sorry about my dog.
Oh, that's totally okay.
When I had my blog, I was only 3 years out of school. So I actually wrote a post about school in it. And I remember it was one of my most viewed ones. And I stopped my blog a couple of months later because I was so paranoid about other people reading it and people I know reading it and stuff, because I had gotten, a couple of thousand views, and I was like, this is too much now. What if someone, that I don't want to find it finds it, and things like that. So I do get what you're talking about. It is very hard to press that post button. And for some reason with the podcast, I don't really think about that as much. I kind of find that maybe people aren't listening because, a lot of our podcasts are very long. So I think unless you really are interested in the topic, you're not going to sit there and listen to it. Whereas with a blog post, you could kind of scroll through in a couple of
Yeah.
minutes and pick out what you want. But with a podcast, I think you have to be properly invested to, if you're going to make fun of it, you have to sit through like 50 minutes at least to you're kind of wasting your time.
No, no, not no. I just think it's super, like, again, your podcast being so open and kind of mental health being so big now and people just being more open. I think, again, there's a lot of silent people out there that are experiencing the same thing that you're experiencing. And I think it's just good for people to kind of hear that stuff. So I remember when I made that blog post, a few people from high school contacted me and was like, oh, well, I didn't know that you were experiencing it. And these were people that like bullied me. And I was like, what do you mean? You didn't know that I experienced, like, just, like them kind of apologizing and them opening up about their story and how they got bullied. Like it was kind of like a chain reaction, so it just
Yeah.
takes one person, I think. And I think it's super awesome that you guys are being open about all of your stories, and that I think it's just a way for people to kind of heal their own mentality and then kind of help others hopefully down the road heal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of hope we have with our podcast, is that someone will relate to something and it will help them feel better in themselves, regardless of what it is. We do try and cover as much as we possibly can. Even you talk about bullying there, I'm just thinking, God, we actually haven't spoke about that really.
Yeah.
And it is something that the two of us have kind of experienced. I think it's something that most people do experience in their
Hmm.
lifetime, but it is something that needs to be talked about more and needs to be the lasting impact and stuff. The fact that the two of us are sitting here talking about it 7 or 8 years after school, it does have an effect on you, long term. So I would definitely like to talk about that. But yeah, we do try and be as open, and I hope that we do come across that way, that we are, being very honest and very vulnerable in what we say in our podcast.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, but where can people find you two? You guys, of course you have a show. So where can people listen to your podcast? Social media, things like that.
Yeah, so we are on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're kind of on every platform that you can think of for your podcast. So we're just Sisterhood. And we're also on Instagram, which is Sisterhood Cast, and we're on Twitter, Sisterhood Cast, and that's basically all of our social medias. You
Perfect,
can find us
perfect,
there.
awesome. And I will post all of that in the show notes below, everyone. So definitely go check that out. Again, they are super honest and open about everything. They have, like, all of their episodes are amazing. So check all of that out. And I thank you so much for
Oh,
being
thank
on
you
today's
so much.
episode. Yeah,
Oh,
no
thank you so much,
worries.
Jordan. It's been lovely.
Okay, everyone. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed recording it with Laura. Now, if you guys don't mind, before you end your session, wherever you're listening, please rate this podcast or rate my podcast 5 stars. It only takes 3 seconds and it really helps me and my show out. Definitely, again, tune in to Laura and Michelle's podcast, The Sisterhood. Everything will be in the show notes below, so definitely check that out or search it up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you like to stream your podcasts. See you all next week.